Mr. Mayor, Jerry, I don't want to get you in trouble out in Fresno, California, for letting you know I actually like your Republicans, but you've done a hell of a job. I'm anxious to hear about your electric buses.
And you might remember that exchange between President Biden and Fresno Mayor Jerry Dyer back in 2021 after the signing of the Build Back Better infrastructure bill. This week, for the first time, Dyer will meet with the sitting president at the White House. Now, according to a release by the Biden administration, this U.S. Conference of Mayors will focus on the latest legislative achievements signed by Biden and how to implement that on the local level. And that last virtual meet and greet was more about the infrastructure bill, talking electric buses and more federal funding for high-speed rail. So how should new federal dollars from the Inflation Reduction Act and the American Rescue Plan be spent right here on the local level? So we want to welcome in our panel this week a couple of council members here. How about the first term for Clovis City Council member Diane Pierce and Fresno City Council member Mike Carbasi? Thank you both for being here. So we'll start with you, obviously, because you're Fresno City Council. You'll see the mayor, he'll head to D.C. Where should those local dollars that are going to be coming in from these new signed legislative pieces, where do they need to go? Did you conference with the mayor before he heads off?
I spoke with the staff, and I think what the mayor's going to focus on are some of our biggest problems, one of them being homelessness and then housing as well. And, a small portion of the meeting is going to be in the White House, but the really important meetings are the ones with policymakers that control the purse strings that will allocate money throughout this country, and Fresno can't be left behind.
For Clovis, this also comes into play for you guys. The money that comes in, where does it need to be focused? If you were headlining and you were sitting right there and you were going to be able to ask the president for money, where does it need to go?
Obviously, Clovis has an entirely different situation. We're a smaller community. We never get the funding that our neighbor to the west gets. But we have similar issues with housing. We're obviously working on those things. But, for us, our number one issue right now is public safety. And so we're just kind of in a different vein of where we see resources needed. So it just kind of depends on what the priorities are at the moment. But I also believe that it's one of those things where you take the money you can for what you can get it for, because then that can free up other dollars elsewhere maybe to tackle some other issues. So if they're doling out dollars for housing, bring it on, right? And I can use any other monies to other issues and priorities that we have.
It's something we always talk about, right? Housing, homelessness, public safety, right? But something that we just finished talking with the CEO of the Fresno County Farm Bureau about was water storage, something that a lot of dollars are never allocated for. So, Congressman Valadeo, a lot of Republicans on the state level calling for more water storage as we saw this storm response. City crews fixing a lot of potholes.
Yes, at this very moment.
Is there money that needs to go into other areas when we talk about infrastructure for water in Fresno?
Oh, and I think this is a nonpartisan issue, and maybe that's why it doesn't get as much coverage as it should, because it's not big enough for some folks. But the reality is,
we'll cover it right here.
That's why we're here. Absolutely. But the reality is that water storage creates jobs. It creates life. It creates food that we eat. And our food supply, we saw from COVID when we relied on other global partners. We can't rely on certain things domestically. It's a national security issue. And if we don't have water, we can't grow food. We can't employ farm workers in farms, and we're dead. This is still an ag community. I don't care what people say. Ag is in our soul, and we have to protect it.
Yeah, if you want to expand on that, I know you have been, advocating for water storage even when you're part of the Fresno Women Republican Federated there for Fresno City and the county.
Right. No, and I think Mike's right that it should be a nonpartisan issue. And what it really is for us in California is a regional issue. And it's desperate times for us to try and get that message out to those who just don't understand and appreciate the importance of the ag industry that's here in the Central Valley. To say it's a national security issue is absolutely correct, but it's a global security. I mean, we feed the world right out of our communities here in the Central Valley. And so when we have the storms, kind of like Ryan was talking about, it's really fantastic, but we can't lose the momentum and sort of the sympathy that we were gaining from other people when they could see, oh, a drought that's devastating for the Central Valley, for the ag industry. And so we have to capitalize on what's going on now to try and get the understanding for that water storage.
The other thing was just the storm in general. It's something we don't experience very much here in the Central Valley. Valley. I mean, we've heard about some tornadoes touching down in the northern area and down in Wood Lake and Ivanhoe and those areas. And you were just talking about the potholes. And I'm wondering if Mother Nature had just become the biggest endorsement for Measure C. It didn't pass this last time.
Right.
Is this something that now voters will look at and say, you know what, maybe we do need Measure C because of what that storm damage did?
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a topic of debate. When you have major roadways like Palm Avenue, Herndon Avenue, Shaw Avenue, and these are major thoroughfares, and there's potholes galore. Voters pay a lot more attention, and this time I think they're going to hold our feet to the fire to make sure that we do pass Measure C.
I think the key that people need to understand about Measure C is the reason we even have that as a Fresno County specific tax is because we aren't getting the infrastructure dollars from the state that we should be getting. And so we're having to self-medicate, in a sense, our infrastructure with Measure C. And so that's a really important thing to recognize. But also, I don't think it's that people didn't think we needed Measure C this last round. I think, unfortunately, there was a lot of questions and bickering, frankly, about how we wanted it to look moving forward. And so I still have extreme concerns with those who are against Measure C this round, what they want it to look like the next time. And I actually hope that what we're seeing now will refocus people on the need for that infrastructure, for our roads, for those other things like our dams and anything we can do for ourselves when it comes to those issues, instead of going off in maybe a different direction.
All right, good stuff, but guess what? We got another round,
All
so
right.
stay put.